The sky over Kashan 7 burned orange and red. Smoke rose from 36 fires across the mining colony. Doyeon Kim watched the destruction through his helmet display and kept his breathing steady. Around him, the other 3 soldiers checked their weapons in silence. The distress signal had reached them 6 days ago. Some colony on the edge of known space was dying. The message was old, desperate, and written in a language the ship's computer barely recognized. Lieutenant Ji-woo Park had played the recording 3 times before deciding to investigate. Now they stood in the colony's landing bay, and Doyeon could see why the colonists had called for help. The wall showed blast marks. Bodies lay covered under thermal blankets. The aliens who remained alive looked at the 4 Terrans with eyes that mixed hope and disbelief. These aliens were called Dalhari. They looked like mantises that stood upright, with 4 arms and shells that shimmered green and blue. One of them approached slowly, its antenna twitching. It carried a translation device that crackled with static. You came," the alien said through the device. Its voice sounded like wind through metal pipes. The old story said Terrans would answer. But we thought you were gone. Dead. Lost to time. Ji-woo stepped forward. She was shorter than the alien, but her presence filled the space. "We're here now. What's your situation?" The alien's forearms moved in what might have been confusion or surprise. "You are real. Terrans are real. The legends spoke of your kind. Warriors from Earth who defended the weak. But your world went silent 300 cycles ago. We thought your species extinct." "We're hard to kill," Corporal Min Ji-han said from behind her medical scanner. She was already checking the wounded colonists, her hands moving quickly over the device. "How many hostiles are we looking at?" The alien seemed overwhelmed by the directness. It took a moment to respond. "The Vrex Dominion. They came 3 months ago. They want our mining operation. We are not warriors. We build, we create. We have fought, but we are losing. Every day they push closer to our homes." Sergeant Hyun Chae adjusted the heavy weapon across his back. He was the oldest of the squad, and his face showed the calm of someone who had seen too many battlefields. "Numbers? 2,000 Vrex soldiers in the surrounding territory. More arrive each week. They have air support, heavy armor, and no mercy." The alien's voice dropped. "We have 400 defenders left. Most are civilians with mining tools." Doyeon exchanged glances with his squad mates. 4 against 2,000. Poor odds for anyone else. For Terrans, it was just another Tuesday. Ji-woo pulled up a holographic display from her wrist computer. "We need maps. Defense positions. Enemy attack patterns. Everything you have." The alien led them deeper into the colony. As they walked, more Dalhari emerged from their hiding places. They stared at the Terrans with expressions that Doyeon couldn't quite read. Fear, wonder, hope, maybe all 3. The colony was beautiful despite the damage. The Dalhari had carved their homes into crystalline rock formations. Bridges connected towers that spiraled toward the sky. Gardens grew in impossible places, fed by underground water systems. It reminded Doyeon of pictures he had seen of old Earth cities before the wars, when humans still built things just because they were beautiful. They reached a command center built into the largest tower. Inside, holographic displays showed the colony layout. Red markers indicated Vrex positions. They surrounded the colony on 3 sides, leaving only the western approach open. That was intentional. The Vrex wanted the Dalhari to run so they could hunt them down. "They attack every 3 days, the alien explained. It gestured with 2 of its arms at the northern sector. "Always from the north. They probe our defenses, test our weak points, then retreat. They are learning how we fight." "And you defend the same way each time?" Ji-woo asked. Yes, we have shields and barriers. We hold positions until they retreat." Minji finished her scan of the maps. "Static defense. They're bleeding you dry. Death by 1,000 cuts." The alien's antenna drooped. "We do not have your experience. We are miners and engineers. Fighting is not in our nature." "It's not in anyone's nature until they have to," Hyun said quietly. "Then it becomes survival." Doyeon moved to the northern edge of the map. The terrain there was rough. Mining tunnels created a maze under the surface. Processing facilities provided cover, but also blocked clear lines of sight. It was bad ground for defense, but excellent for an ambush. "If you knew what you were doing, when's the next attack?" he asked. "Their pattern suggests tomorrow at dawn. They will come with at least 300 soldiers." Ji-woo studied the map for another minute. Then she looked at her squad. No words were needed. They had worked together for 5 years. Each member knew what the others were thinking. "We'll need access to your industrial equipment," Jiwoo said finally. "Fabricators, raw materials, anything that can be repurposed. Of course, but what will you do? 4 soldiers against their army?" "5," a voice said from the doorway. Doyen turned to see Private Taeyong Shin entering the room. He must have finished securing their ship. "Someone has to make sure you all don't have too much fun without me." The alien looked between the 5 Terrans. 5 against their hundreds. This is madness. The legend said Terrans were brave, but this is suicide. "No," Jiwoo corrected. "This is Wednesday." She turned back to the map. "Doyen, you'll take point position here. Minji, set up a triage station with a secondary function. Hyun, I want you anchored at the main choke point. Taeyong, coordinate with their combat drones. I'll handle overall tactical. And if more come?" the alien asked. "Then they'll learn why humans became legends in the first place," Minji said. She was smiling now, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly how good they were at their job. The alien seemed uncertain. "But you are just 5. They are an empire. They have conquered 70 star systems." Hyun checked his weapons ammunition counter. 71 systems full of people who fought like you. Defensive, predictable, waiting to lose. He looked up at the alien. "We don't fight like that. We're Terran." Doyen felt the familiar pre-combat calm settle over him. The nervousness disappeared. The doubt vanished. What remained was training, experience, and the knowledge that his squad was the best in the expeditionary force. They had not traveled 500 light-years to watch colonists die. Outside, alarms began to sound. The Delhari rushed to the windows. In the distance, dark shapes dropped from the clouds. Frex dropships, dozens of them heading for the northern perimeter. "They're early," the alien said, panic creeping into its voice. "They have never attacked at night before." Jiwoo was already moving toward the door. "They probably detected our ship. They want to hit us before we're ready." "Are you ready?" the alien asked. Doyen checked his rifle one more time and followed his lieutenant toward the battle. Behind him, he heard Taeyong laugh. "We were born ready. Now let's go teach these Vrex what it means to fight humans." The 5 Terrans moved through the colony like shadows. The Delhari watched them go. These warriors from ancient stories, these legends made flesh. In the distance, the Vrex ships landed and thousands of soldiers began to march toward the colony. The aliens thought this was the end. They were wrong. For the Vrex, this was the beginning of a very bad day. For the Terrans, it was just another mission, another world to defend, another group of innocents to protect. The old legends were about to become new nightmares. The Vrex came like a flood of scales and fury. Commander Thalas watched from his command ship as 300 of his best soldiers advanced on the colony's northern sector. These insects would break today. He would crush them, then find whoever sent that strange ship and make an example of them. On the ground, Doyen moved through shadows that shouldn't have existed. His armor's camouflage systems bent light around him, making him nearly invisible. He reached his position in the mining tunnel network and began setting up. The Dalhari had told him these tunnels were too unstable for combat. They were right if you planned to defend here, but Doyen wasn't defending. "Point position secure," he whispered into his comm. "I count 270 hostiles northern approach. Heavy weapons in the back. They're confident." "Let them be confident," Jiwoo's voice came back. Minji status. 200 meters away, Minji worked in what used to be a medical station. She had set up equipment to treat wounded Dalhari, but she had also placed charges on 3 support columns and rigged the ceiling with proximity mines. Combat medic meant you saved lives and ended threats. She was good at both. Triage ready. Surprises ready. They're walking right into the funnel. Hyun stood at the main choke point where 3 tunnels met. His heavy weapon rested on a makeshift mount. Behind him, a dozen Dalhari volunteers waited with mining lasers and improvised shields. They looked terrified. Hyun understood. The first battle was always the hardest. "You hold this position until I say move," he told them in a calm voice. "When they come through that tunnel, you aim where I aim. You fire when I fire. You don't think, you don't hesitate. Understand?" The Dalhari clicked their mandibles in agreement. One of them, a younger one with bright green shell markings, spoke up. "Will we survive this?" "If you do exactly what I say, yes." Hyun checked his ammunition counter. "If you run, no. The Vrex hunt runners, but they've never fought someone who hunts back." The Vrex entered the tunnel system with the arrogance of conquerors. They had done this 70 times before on 70 different worlds. They knew how prey behaved. Prey ran, prey hid, prey died. Doyen let the first 20 pass his position. Then he moved. His rifle coughed 3 times, barely louder than a whisper. 3 Vrex fell. The others spun around, confused. Where had the shots come from? Before they could find him, Doyen triggered a shaped charge on the tunnel wall. Rock and metal collapsed, cutting the Vrex force in half. First trap sprung, he reported. 90 hostiles separated from the main group. They're angry now. Good, Jiwoo said from her command position. Angry means stupid. Taeyong. Deploy drones. Taeyong sat in a room filled with holographic screens. His fingers flew across the controls as he took over the colony's maintenance drones. These simple robots had been built to repair things, not fight. But with a few modifications, they became excellent distraction tools. A dozen drones flew into the tunnels, their lights flashing, their speakers blaring alarms. The Vrex soldiers fired at them, wasting ammunition and revealing their positions. They're taking the bait, Taeyong said with satisfaction, repositioning their heavy weapons to target drones. This is almost too easy. Don't get cocky, Jiwoo warned. Doyun, fall back to position 2. Minji, prepare your surprise. The Vrex pressed forward, certain of their victory. They reached the medical station where Minji had set up. She watched them through her helmet camera, waiting. 50 Vrex, 60, 70. When 90 soldiers crowded into the chamber, she pressed the trigger. The support columns exploded. The ceiling groaned and came down in a controlled collapse. Minji had calculated it perfectly. The falling rock sealed off the chamber, trapping the Vrex inside but not killing them. Not yet. That wasn't the surprise. The surprise was the mining equipment she had rigged to vent superheated gas into the sealed chamber. The Vrex inside suddenly found themselves in an oven. Their armor could handle it for maybe 30 seconds. Then they would have to retreat or cook. They retreated right into Hyun's position. The Vrex came through the tunnel in a panicked rush, no longer organized, no longer confident. Hyun opened fire. His heavy weapon roared, sending explosive rounds down the tunnel. The Dalhari volunteers beside him added their mining lasers. The combination was devastating. Steady, Hyun called over the noise. Don't waste shots. Pick your targets. That's it. You're doing fine. The young Dalhari with the green markings was shaking but kept firing. Hyun noticed the kid had natural aim. Good instincts. If they survived this, the kid might make a real soldier. Commander Thalas watched his tactical display in growing disbelief. 90 soldiers were sealed in a death trap. Another 60 were pinned down by concentrated fire. The northern advance had completely stalled. How? The colony had shown no capability like this before. Send the reserve force, he ordered. Crush whatever resistance they've mounted. 100 fresh Vrex soldiers entered the tunnels. They moved carefully now, checking corners, scanning for traps. They were professionals, and they would not fall for simple tricks. They found Doyen instead. He hit them from 3 different angles in the span of 10 seconds. His armor let him move in ways that seemed impossible. He would fire from one position, then appear behind them, then vanish into a side tunnel they hadn't known existed. The Vrex tried to coordinate, tried to pin him down, but it was like fighting smoke. They're adapting, Doyen reported.
His voice was calm despite running, shooting, and dodging all at once.
Splitting into fire teams, using proper suppression tactics. Then it's time to change the game, Jiwoo said. Everyone to position 3 now. The Terrans moved as one. Hyun grabbed the young Dalhari volunteer and pulled him along. Minji triggered her last set of charges, sealing more tunnels. Doyen disappeared into the maintenance shafts that only someone his size could navigate. Taeyong crashed his drones into Vrex soldiers, turning simple repair robots into kinetic weapons. They converged on position 3, an open chamber with multiple exits and a clear view of the sky. The Vrex would have to cross open ground to reach it. Every military manual in the galaxy said you never let the enemy trap you in the open. The Vrex knew this, so they confidently surrounded the chamber and prepared to finish off whoever was inside. Now they have us, Thalas said with satisfaction. No cover, no escape. End this. The Vrex charged from 4 directions at once. 200 soldiers poured into the chamber. They expected to find desperate defenders making a last stand. Instead, they found 5 Terrans who had stopped playing defense. Jiwoo gave one command: free fire. What happened next would be analyzed by military academies for years. 5 soldiers turned a killing ground into a masterpiece of coordinated violence. Hyun's heavy weapon created a wall of explosive death on the left. Minji threw charges that didn't just explode but scattered smaller charges that exploded again. Taeyong's combat drones dove from above, their modified tools cutting through armor. Doyeon moved through the chaos like a dancer, his rifle finding targets with mechanical precision, and Jiwoo stood in the center, directing it all, her own weapon speaking in controlled bursts. The Vreks had numbers. The Terrans had something better. They had turned fighting into an art form, practiced and perfected over thousands of years of human conflict. Every movement had a purpose. Every shot mattered. Nothing was wasted. The battle lasted 4 minutes. When it ended, 80 Vreks lay dead or dying. The rest retreated in disorder, their confidence shattered. Commander Thalas stared at his display. In one night he had lost 140 soldiers. To 5 enemies, 5, it was impossible. Yet his sensors didn't lie. Neither did the screaming reports from his surviving troops. "What are they?" his second officer asked in a shaking voice. Thalas remembered the old stories his grandmother had told him. Stories about warriors from a dead world, soldiers who never retreated, never surrendered, never stopped coming. He had thought them children's tales meant to scare the young. "Terrans," he whispered. "The legends are real." Back in the colony, the Delhari watched in amazement as the 5 humans returned. They were wounded. Minji had burns on her left arm. Hyun was limping. Doyeon's armor showed cracks from impacts, but they were alive, and they had won. The young Dalhari volunteer approached Hyun nervously. "You said if I did what you said, I would survive." "Thank you." Hyun gripped the kid's shoulder gently. "You did good. Really good. Your people aren't helpless. You just needed someone to show you how to bite back." Jiwoo looked at the colony's leaders who had gathered to meet them. This was just the opening move. "They'll come back, harder, meaner, more of them." "Can you win?" one of the leaders asked. Minji finished wrapping her burns and smiled. "We're Terran. Winning is what we do." In orbit, Commander Thalas sent a priority message to the Vrek's homeworld. The message had 3 words: send the fleet. The colony's central hub was quiet for the first time in months. The Vreks had pulled back to regroup after their losses. The Dalhari used the time to repair damage and treat their wounded, and to stare at the 5 Terrans who had changed everything. Doyeon sat in what passed for a cafeteria, trying to figure out how to eat the local food. It looked like blue crystals and smelled like mint. One of the Dalhari engineers watched him with fascination. "You really are from Earth?" the engineer asked. Its translator gave the question a tone of wonder. "Born there," Doyeon confirmed. He took a cautious bite of the crystal food. It tasted like chicken somehow. "Small city called Busan, right on the ocean." But Earth went silent. 300 years ago, all transmissions stopped. "We thought your world had destroyed itself in war." Doyeon shook his head. "Humans saw what was happening out here. Empires conquering each other. Species going extinct. We had just finished our own world wars. Figured we'd done enough damage, so we put up a barrier and stepped back. Gave ourselves time to heal and think about who we wanted to be. And now you return," the engineer said. "Why, after so long?" "Because someone asked for help." Doyeon made it sound simple because to him it was. Across the hub, Minji worked with the Dalhari medical staff. She showed them techniques for treating injuries that would have been fatal an hour ago. The Dalhari doctors watched in amazement as she demonstrated a device that could seal arteries and restart organs with focused energy pulses. "This technology," one doctor said in awe, "it's centuries beyond ours. You could save millions with these methods." "We will," Minji promised. "That's part of why we're here. Earth spent 300 years advancing. Medicine, engineering, materials, science. We got really good at it. Now we share. But the fighting," another doctor said. "You are healers but also warriors. How do you balance this?" Minji thought about that while she bandaged a young Dalhari who had been injured in the battle. "We heal because we care about life. We fight because we care about life. It's the same thing, just different methods. Sometimes the best way to save someone is to stop the person trying to hurt them." In the command center, Jiwoo stood with the colony leader named Vesh. The Dalhari administrator had been reviewing old archive files all morning. Now it looked overwhelmed. "I found records," Vesh said quietly, "from before Earth's silence. Your species served as peacekeepers. You defended smaller civilizations from aggressive empires. You asked for nothing in return except that we remember you helped." "Sounds like us," Jiwoo agreed. "But why?" What drives humans to fight for strangers? Jiwoo pulled up a holographic image on her wrist computer. It showed Earth from orbit, blue and white and beautiful. 300 years ago, we nearly destroyed this. War after war, conflict after conflict. We hurt each other so badly that we almost didn't survive. When we finally stopped, we looked at what we'd done and made a choice. What choice? Never again. Never again would we stand by and watch others suffer what we suffered. Never again would we let might make right. So when we healed enough to travel again, we came back to the stars. Not to conquer, not to take, to protect. Vesh's antenna trembled. You carry the guilt of your past into the present. We carry the responsibility of our past into the future, Jiwoo corrected gently. There's a difference. In the colony's workshop, Hyun and Taeyong worked with Dalhari engineers. They were converting mining equipment into defensive weapons. The Dalhari watched in fascination as the Terrans turned simple tools into sophisticated systems. You see everything as a potential weapon, one engineer observed. We see everything as a potential solution, Taeyong corrected. He held up a mining laser. This cuts rock, but with some modifications it can cut through Vrek's armor. Not because we want to hurt people, but because we need to stop people who want to hurt you. Hyun showed them how to reinforce the colony's barriers using the same materials that made up their beautiful towers. Your architecture is defensive without looking defensive. You built strong without building ugly. That's smart. We just need to make it stronger. The young Dalhari with green markings who had fought in the battle approached Hyun nervously. Can you teach us to fight like you? Hyun studied the kid for a moment. Fighting like a Terran isn't about strength or speed. It's about thinking. Every battle is a puzzle. Every enemy has weaknesses. You just need to learn to see them. Will you teach me? Already started. You stayed calm in the battle. You listened to orders. You controlled your fear. That's 90% of being a soldier. The rest is just practice. That evening, the colony gathered in the central plaza. Someone had managed to get the fountain working again. Water sparkled in the fading light. The Dalhari wanted to honor the Terrans with a ceremony, but Jiwoo had asked them to wait. This wasn't a time for celebration. The real fight was coming. Instead, the humans shared stories. Doyen talked about growing up by the ocean, learning to swim before he could walk. Minji described her grandmother's garden, where she had learned that taking care of living things was the most important skill anyone could have. Taeyong told jokes that the translators struggled with but made the Dalhari laugh anyway. And Hyun, the quietest of them, talked about a planet called Sejong, where he had grown up. A human colony world that had prospered because people chose to build instead of break, to create instead of destroy. We're not special, he told the gathered crowd. We're just people who decided that protecting others matters more than protecting ourselves. Any species can do this. You can do this. You just need to believe you're worth fighting for. Vesh approached the Terrans as the gathering dispersed. Our long-range sensors detected something. A Vrek's battle fleet is entering the system. 20 warships. Thousands of soldiers. The Dalhari expected panic. Instead, Jiwoo just nodded. We saw them coming. How long until they arrive? 2 days. Perhaps 3 if we're fortunate. That's enough time. Jiwoo looked at her squad. We'll need access to your industrial fabricators. All of them. And all available raw materials. What will you do? Vesh asked. Teach the Vreks a lesson they won't forget. Jiwoo's expression was calm, but her eyes were hard. Commander Thalas called for reinforcements because 5 Terrans beat his army. Let's show him what 5 Terrans can really do when they have time to prepare. Later that night, Minji found Doyen on the colony's outer wall, watching the stars. She sat down beside him without speaking. They had been through enough battles together that words weren't always necessary. Finally, Doyen said, Think we can win this one? We've faced worse odds. Not by much. Minji smiled in the darkness. Remember the academy? When they told us the expeditionary force was looking for volunteers for a crazy mission? Investigate old distress calls from species that remembered us. Most of the class thought it was a joke. No one would remember us after 300 years. But we volunteered anyway. Because you said something I'll never forget. You said that if even one person out there remembered that humans once helped them, we owed it to them to come back. Doyen was quiet for a moment. Did I really say that? I don't remember. You were drunk. But you meant it. We all knew you meant it. That's why we're here. She stood up and stretched. 20 warships. Thousands of soldiers. One small colony and 5 Terrans. Yeah, I think we can win this. How can you be sure? Because losing means those people in there die. And we're Terran. We don't do that. We don't let good people die while we can still fight. She headed for the door, then paused. Get some sleep, Doyen. Tomorrow we start building something that will make the Vrex regret everything. In orbit, Commander Thalos received confirmation that the fleet was coming. He looked at the small colony below and thought about the 5 warriors who defended it. The legend said Terrans were unstoppable. He had laughed at those stories as a child. Now he sent a message to the fleet commander. The message was simple: bring everything. They are exactly what the stories warned us about. The fleet commander sent back 3 words. Then we'll bring more. On the colony, 5 Terrans worked through the night, preparing surprises that would make military history. The Dalhari watched in amazement as simple mining equipment became sophisticated weapons, as defensive barriers became death traps, as a small colony transformed into a fortress. The legends had returned. And legends the galaxy was about to learn were legends for a reason. The Vrex fleet arrived like an angry god. 20 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and took position around Cashin 7. Their hulls were dark metal covered in weapon ports. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city. Together, they could crack a planet. Fleet Commander Rakesh studied the small colony on his main display. 1 mining settlement, barely 400 defenders, and 5 Terrans who had somehow defeated his ground forces twice. He would not underestimate them again. Launch all dropships, he ordered. I want 5,000 soldiers on the ground within the hour. Crush everything. Leave nothing standing. His tactical officer hesitated. Sir, there's 1 ship in orbit. Small frigate. Terran design. It's moving. On the bridge of the indomitable Echo, Captain Subin Lee watched the Vrex fleet with calm eyes. Her ship was a fraction of the size of even 1 Vrex destroyer. But size, she had learned in her 20 years of service, wasn't everything. Weapons status? She asked. Experimental railguns charging, her weapons officer reported. 30 seconds to full power. Hana, calculate firing solutions for their 3 largest ships. We'll hit them first. The ship's AI, Hana Yoon, spoke in a voice that somehow sounded both mechanical and amused. Captain, I've calculated a 93% chance they think we're running away. Good. Let them think that for another 20 seconds. On the ground, Jiwoo watched the Vrex dropships descend like a swarm of metal locusts. 5,000 soldiers. She had prepared for this. The entire colony had prepared for this. 2 days of turning mining equipment into weapons. 2 days of teaching the Dalhari to fight smart instead of defensive. 2 days of setting traps that would make this battle legendary. All positions report in, she said calmly into her comm. North sector ready? Doyen responded. He stood with 50 Dalhari volunteers, all armed with modified mining lasers and improvised explosives. They looked scared but determined. He had spent 2 days teaching them that being scared was fine as long as you used it to stay sharp. East sector ready? Minji confirmed. She had converted the medical station into a command post with automated turrets hidden in every corner. Medical supplies sat ready, but so did enough firepower to hold off an army. South sector ready, Taeyong reported from his drone control room. He had connected to every piece of automated equipment in the colony. Maintenance drones, cargo loaders, even the garbage processing units. All of it could be weaponized. All of it would be. West sector ready, Hyun said. His voice was calm as always. He stood with the young Dalhari with green markings and 30 other volunteers. They held the main defensive line. We see them coming, hundreds, maybe thousands. Then let's show them what we built, Jiwoo said. She stood in the central command tower, surrounded by holographic displays. She could see every sector, every soldier, every trap waiting to be sprung. Remember, we're not trying to defeat them all. We're trying to make them quit. The Vrex came down like judgment itself. Dropships landed in perfect formation. Soldiers poured out by the hundreds, weapons ready, armor gleaming. They formed up in disciplined ranks. These were professional warriors from an empire that had conquered 70 worlds. They knew how to do this. They marched toward the colony with complete confidence. 5,000 against 400? They had overwhelming numbers, superior firepower, and 300 years of military tradition. Victory was certain. Then they hit the first trap. Taeyong had reprogrammed the mining drones to dig shallow tunnels just under the surface. When the Vrex soldiers marched over them, The ground collapsed. 200 soldiers fell into pits lined with mining equipment that suddenly activated. The screaming was terrible. The Vrex ranks hesitated. Then they adapted, spreading out, checking the ground. They were professionals. One trap wouldn't stop them. The second trap was different. Minji had placed shaped charges throughout the approach paths. Not to kill, to channel. When the charges detonated, they didn't hit the soldiers. They collapsed rock formations, creating new walls, forcing the Vrex to take specific routes that led straight into kill zones. Doyun opened fire first. His sector held the mining facility, full of equipment and cover. The Vrex charged in, expecting desperate resistance. Instead, they found precision death. Every shot Doyun took hit. Every Dalhari volunteer had been positioned perfectly. The Vrex couldn't advance without losing soldiers to sniper fire they couldn't locate. Hyun's sector was different. He didn't hide. He stood in plain sight with his heavy weapon and dared them to come. When they did, he created a wall of explosive rounds that nothing could pass through. The Dalhari volunteers with him added their fire. Not trying to be heroes, just doing their jobs. Suppressing fire, making the enemy keep their heads down. And while the ground forces struggled, something happened in orbit. The indomitable echo struck. Subin Lee's experimental railguns fired 3 times in rapid succession. Solid metal slugs accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, crossed space in seconds. The first slug punched through a Vrex destroyer's shields like they were paper. The second slug hit a battlecruiser's engine section. The third missed, but only because the target ship had panicked and moved. All ships target that frigate. Commander Rakesh screamed. Destroy it. 20 Virex warships turned their weapons on one small Terran ship. The indomitable echo danced between their fire. Subin Lee had spent 300 years learning how human ships could outmaneuver larger vessels. She used the planet's gravity. She used debris fields. She used timing and positioning that no computer could calculate fast enough. Hit and run, she told her crew. Make them angry. Make them sloppy. The Vrex fleet wasted ammunition trying to hit a ship that wouldn't sit still. Meanwhile, the indomitable echo circled back and fired again. Another slug. Another crippled ship. On the ground, Commander Thalas landed with his personal guard. 300 elite soldiers, the best the Vrex had. He would finish this himself. He marched toward the central tower where the Terran leader coordinated the defense. Jiwoo watched him come. He's taking the bait. Taeyang, release the swarm. 1,000 maintenance drones rose from the colony like angry insects. The Vrex shot them down by the dozens, but there were too many. The drones crashed into soldiers, into equipment, into anything that moved. They didn't carry weapons. They didn't need to. Their mass and momentum were weapons enough. Thalas roared in frustration. Keep moving. Reach that tower. He broke through the drone swarm with 100 soldiers remaining. They stormed into the tower, weapons ready. They found Jiwoo standing in the command center unarmed, waiting for them. You, Thalas snarled. You destroyed my army. You humiliated my fleet. You are just one person, one. No, Jiwoo said calmly. I'm one person who's never alone. The floor exploded. Shaped charges Minji had placed days ago detonated in sequence, collapsing portions of the floor and separating Thalas from his guards. In the chaos, Jiwoo moved. She had set her weapon aside, but that didn't mean she was unarmed. Terran hand-to-hand combat was 300 years more advanced than when Earth went silent. It showed. She disarmed Thalas in 3 moves, broke his weapon in 4, had him on the ground in 5. She could have killed him. Instead, she held a blade to his throat and spoke quietly. Your fleet is losing. Your ground forces are broken. You can keep fighting and die here, or you can surrender and live to see tomorrow. Thalas looked into her eyes and saw no mercy. But he also saw no cruelty. Just professional competence. Just a warrior doing a job. Why fight so hard for these insects? They mean nothing to you. They asked for help, Jiwoo said simply. That means everything to us. In orbit, the indomitable Echo made one final pass. Subin Lee had saved her ship's most powerful weapon for last. A focused energy beam that took all her reactor's power. She aimed it at the Vrex flagship and fired. The beam cut through the flagship's shields and hull like a laser through smoke. The ship didn't explode. It just stopped working. Every system failed at once. The flagship drifted, dead in space. All Vrex ships, Subin broadcast on every frequency. Your flagship is disabled. Your ground commander is captured. You have lost. Retreat now, or we continue this dance until every one of your ships is scrap metal. The Vrex fleet hesitated. Then slowly they began to withdraw. The dropships on the ground lifted off, carrying wounded soldiers. The remaining warships formed up and jumped to faster than light, leaving the system. On the colony, 5,000 Vrex soldiers had been reduced to less than 2,000. They had faced 5 Terrans and 400 colonists who had learned to fight like Terrans. It hadn't been a battle. It had been a lesson. Jiwoo released Thalys. Go, tell your empire what happened here. Tell them that the legends are real. Tell them that humanity is back and we protect those who ask for help. Thalys stood, his pride shattered, his confidence destroyed. He looked at the small human who had defeated him without killing him. Why spare me? Because dead enemies teach no lessons. Living ones spread the word. Now go before I change my mind. The Vrex commander limped away, calling for medical evacuation. He would survive. He would report what happened. And he would never forget the day he learned that legends weren't just stories. The colony woke to silence. For the first time in 3 months, no alarm sounded. No explosions echoed. No Vrex ships darkened the sky. The war was over, and they had won. Doyen stood on the outer wall watching the sun rise over Keshin 7. The light caught the crystal towers and made them glow like gems. Beautiful. Worth fighting for. He heard footsteps behind him and didn't need to turn around to know it was Minji. You always stand in the same spot, she observed. Best view. Or you're sentimental. She joined him at the wall. Her arm was wrapped in fresh bandages. The burns from the battle were healing fast thanks to Terran medical technology. The Delhari want to throw us a party. Of course they do. Jiwoo said we should attend. Good for relations. Jiwoo's right. Doyen finally turned to look at her. You know we're leaving soon. I know. Another distress call came in this morning. Some mining station 3 systems over. Pirates maybe. Or raiders. The message was old and unclear. So we go check it out. Minji agreed. That's the job. Below them, the colony buzzed with activity. Delhari worked to repair damage from the battle. But there was something different now. They moved with confidence. With purpose. The Vrex had tried to break them and failed. That kind of victory changed people. In the medical center, Minji had left behind equipment and training materials. The Delhari doctors studied them with fascination. This technology could save thousands of lives. The humans had simply given it away, asking nothing in return. Why? One doctor asked Minji when she stopped by to check on her patients. This knowledge is worth fortunes. You could trade it for anything. Then it wouldn't be where it's needed most, Minji said. She showed the doctor how to calibrate a tissue regenerator. Knowledge hoarded is knowledge wasted. Knowledge shared makes everyone stronger. In the workshop, Hyun worked with the Delhari engineers one last time. They were building permanent defenses now. Not just weapons, but systems. Detection grids, communication networks, ways to call for help if the Vrex ever came back. The young Delhari with green markings watched Hyun work with obvious admiration. Will you stay? Teach us more? Hyun paused in his work. I've taught you the important stuff. How to think like a defender. How to use what you have instead of wishing for what you don't. How to be brave when you're scared. The rest is just details. But we're not soldiers. Not like you. Good. The galaxy doesn't need more soldiers. It needs people willing to protect what they've built. Hyun gripped the kid's shoulder. You stood in the fire and didn't run. You're already more soldier than most professionals I've met. Taeyong was in the drone control room, teaching Delhari technicians how to maintain the systems he had built. Simple code that turned maintenance equipment into defensive tools. Nothing illegal. Nothing dangerous unless someone attacked first. Just smart engineering. You made this seem easy, one technician said, studying the code. It is easy once you understand the principle. Every tool is neutral. A mining laser cuts rock or it cuts armor, depending on what you point it at. A cargo drone carries supplies or carries explosives. You just need to be creative. Will other Terrans come? If we call again? Taeyong smiled. Probably. We're kind of predictable that way. Someone asks for help, we show up. It's a human thing. In the command center, Jiwoo met with Vesh and the other colony leaders. They had questions. So many questions. About Earth, about humanity's plans, about what came next. The Vrex will report what happened, Vesh said carefully. Other empires will learn that Terrans have returned. What will this mean for the galaxy? Change, Jiwoo said honestly. Earth spent 300 years watching from behind our barrier. We saw empires rise and fall. We saw species go extinct because no one helped them. We saw the strong crush the weak because that's what the strong do. And we decided we couldn't watch anymore. So you'll fight? Everywhere? We'll help everywhere, there's a difference. Jiwoo pulled up a star map. The Terran Expeditionary Force has 3,000 ships. Not all of them are warships. Most are support vessels. Medical ships. Engineering ships. Colony establishment ships. We're not here to conquer. We're here to balance the scales. And if empires don't want you here, Jiwoo's expression hardened slightly, then they can learn what the Vreks learned. Humanity doesn't start fights, but we're very good at finishing them. That evening, the colony held their celebration. The Dalhari had prepared food and music. They had decorated the central plaza with lights and flowers. It was beautiful in a way that made Doyen's chest tight. These people had been dying. Now they were celebrating life. Captain Subin Lee came down from the Indomitable Echo for the party. She brought her crew, men and women who had risked their lives fighting a fleet 20 times their size. The Dalhari treated them like heroes. The Terrans treated it like they had just done their jobs. You fought 20 warships with one frigate, Vesh said to Subin in amazement. How? Better training, better technology, better motivation. Subin accepted a cup of the local drink. It tasted like flowers and lightning. And because we knew Jiwoo's squad was down here, we don't abandon our people, ever. You speak of your squad as family. They are family. That's what military service teaches you. Blood doesn't make family. Shared purpose does. Shared sacrifice does. Trust does. The young Dalhari with green markings approached Hyun nervously. The kid held something wrapped in cloth. I made this. For you? Hyun unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a small sculpture, beautifully carved from local crystal. It showed a Terran and a Dalhari standing back to back, weapons ready. The detail was incredible. This is amazing, Hyun said sincerely. You made this? I'm an artist, or I was before the war. I thought I had to choose between making beauty and fighting. You showed me I can do both. Protect beauty and create it. Hyun looked at the sculpture for a long moment. Then he wrapped it carefully and put it in his pack. I'll keep this with me. Every time I see it, I'll remember why we do this. Thank you. As the party continued, Jiwoo stepped away to take a call. It was from Expeditionary Force Command on Earth. Admiral Park, her uncle, appeared in holographic form. Report was received, he said without preamble. 5 soldiers, 1 ship. Defeated a Vreks fleet and saved a colony. Well done. Thank you, sir. You should also know that the Vreks have issued a formal statement. They're calling you terrorists. They've declared that any Terran ship will be fired upon on sight. Jiwoo smiled slightly. While simultaneously ordering their fleets to avoid us. The Admiral confirmed. They're scared, good. Fear makes enemies careful. Careful enemies make fewer mistakes. What are your orders, sir? Continue your mission. Check distress calls. Help where you can. But Jiwoo, his expression grew serious. More squads are deploying. We're getting hundreds of calls from species that remember the old stories. They want to know if we're real. They want to know if help is coming. What are you telling them? That yes, help is coming, that the Terrans are walking again, and that this time we're not leaving. The call ended. Jiwoo stood alone for a moment looking at the stars. 300 years humanity had hidden. 300 years of healing, growing, advancing. Now they were back. And the galaxy would never be the same. She returned to the party. Her squad was there, laughing with the colonists, sharing stories, building friendships. This was why they fought. Not for glory. Not for territory, for moments like this, for people who deserve to live without fear. The next morning, the Indomitable Echo prepared to depart. The Dalhari gathered to see them off. Many were crying. The young Dalhari with green markings stood with Hyun one last time. Will you come back? The kid asked. Maybe, if you need us, but you won't need us. You're stronger than you think. Because you taught us. No, because you learned. There's a difference. The Terrans boarded their ship. As they lifted off, Doyen looked down at the colony one last time. The crystal towers caught the light. The Dalhari stood in the plaza, waving. A world saved. A people given hope. Not a bad week's work. Where to next? Taeyong asked from the pilot's seat. Jiwoo pulled up the distress call they had received. Mining station. 3 systems over. Pirates or raiders? Message is old. So probably already dead, Minji said quietly. Probably. But we check anyway. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we can help. And if we're too late? Then we make sure whoever did it knows that Terrans don't forget. And we don't forgive. Jiwoo's voice was hard. The galaxy is learning we're back. Some will welcome us. Some will fear us. Some will try to test us. Let them. They'll learn the same lesson the Vrex learned. What lesson? Subin asked from the captain's chair. That the legends were real. That humanity meant every promise we made. That we protect the weak and punish the cruel. That you can hide from us, but you can't hide from justice. Jiwoo looked at her squad, at the crew, at the ship that would carry them to the next fight. 300 years ago, we were ancient legends. Stories told to children. Myths from a dead world. The indomitable Echo jumped to faster than light, leaving Kashin 7 behind. On the colony, the Dalhari watched the stars and felt safe for the first time in months. Above them, the galaxy was changing. Old empires were nervous. Weak species were hopeful. And across 1,000 star systems, people told stories of warriors from Earth.